Welcome back to Community Chats in our Belonging series. Really glad you could join us again. Belonging begins with where you live, and inclusive vertical communities is an approach to housing that Community Living Toronto has been refining for the past 16 years. In this episode, I sit down with David and Jonathan from the Community Living team to talk about the work we're doing right now to build really inclusive vertical communities, places where people with intellectual and developmental disabilities can live with choice and independence, with the support they need and a deep sense of belonging. We talk about the partnerships and relationships that have shaped our work over the years, the green paper we launched last week, and how it's guiding our policy direction. The models we are learning from in other parts of the world, especially around affordability and inclusion. And some exciting projects that we have this year ahead include our loss and development, which will be a major milestone for us in the years to come. We also talk about why this model matters. It's not just about housing solutions, but it's a way of creating communities where people feel connected and valued and where they belong. As loneliness is cited by many as one of the biggest troubles that they're dealing with, we believe that inclusive communities and communities where people are connected are more important than ever. We believe that this approach is one way of solving the housing and supportive housing crisis that Canada is facing. So grab a coffee, settle in, and let's chat, because belonging grows when we build it together. Okay, today we're going to talk about housing, and we've done a ton of work at Community Living Toronto around building more housing options across the city that are appropriate to what people want and how they want to live their lives, and also reflect how the city has changed in the last number of decades. So joining me today, I've got a couple of excellent Community Living Toronto staff that I'll introduce to you, and maybe David, Jonathan, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great to be here.
I'll glad to have you. Why don't we start by maybe just introducing yourselves and what your role is at Community Living Toronto, and maybe just a little bit about how you got involved in community living, how you came to work for us. David, I'll start with you.
Thanks, Brad. I'm David Renfrew. I'm the Senior Director of Real Estate and Project Management at Community Living Toronto. I've been with the association for 26 or 27 years and really grown in my career here. I started out in information systems and then moved into more project management, which evolved into the real estate, which has been part of my portfolio now for over 10 years. So really enjoyed the opportunity to grow here and looking forward to today's conversation.
Great. Jonathan, what about yourself?
Jonathan Bradshaw. I'm the Director of Advocacy and Strategic Partnership for Community Living Toronto. And this is this month a year that I've been working here, which is great. And I had previously worked, and when I first met you, Brad, was when I was working for the provincial government. And I was there for 13 years as a political staffer in different roles, the last 6 of which was as the Senior Policy Advisor for Developmental Services. And then I'd worked in various different positions in the DS sector after leaving government. And as I say, this is my year here, and very excited to be here, and looking forward to where we're going with a lot of this work.
Good. So congratulations on the milestone. You've had an impactful year, and we've got a lot going on. So as everybody that reads the news or watches TV knows, there's significant housing pressures, crisis, some would say, across Canada. And cities around the country, municipalities are struggling to deal with affordability issues. We have got significant issues around homelessness in many of our cities, and developmental services and people living with disabilities are no exception. There's a shortage of housing that's suitable and appropriate, as well as affordable, and there are massive wait lists for people that are waiting for a place to live. Estimates now are sort of 30,000 people are waiting for a place to live. That doesn't mean that 30,000 people need a place to live tomorrow, but at some point in the next number of years, people will need places to live. At Community Living Toronto, we've taken an approach to housing that we've seen develop over the last 10, 12 years and has been quite fruitful. We've named this inclusive vertical communities, and we've done a lot of work and had a lot of experience in this area, and we have hopes for the future around where this will lead us. But let's level set with everybody. So inclusive vertical communities. David, what is an inclusive vertical community?
So an inclusive vertical community is a building where people live, but also there's an opportunity to get supports and services within that living situation. It's a model that's evolved, as you said, over the past 10 or 12 years. We were first involved with Toronto Community Housing at Dan Leckie back in 2010. And that was really new to us at Community Living Toronto. Traditionally, we've been in a group home model, where it's a more congregated setting. But this was an opportunity to look at something new. This was a location down by the waterfront, and partnered with Francis and lots of conversation with Toronto Community Housing, how that could evolve. And that really set up the path for us moving forward over the past number of years. The model really is providing housing with people within these apartments, but also providing supports as needed within the building as well. So some people may be more independent, they live separately, but other people may live more in a more supported setting as well. So it just gives some flexibility, but it gives a lot of choice to the people we support as well, as far as the model, how they'd like to live and the level of independence they have.
So describe how a typical vertical community would work. How many units would we have? How many staff would kind of be there? Where are the units located in the building? What are the sizes? How does that work?
So this model has evolved over the years, but typically we look at, depends on the size of the building. We really want to have a presence in the building, but really be part of and that inclusive environment is what we really aim for. So we're looking for a few units within the building, and we tend to go for a scattered approach. So they're not all on the one floor. The apartments are located throughout the building. We usually have staff located at one hub, so they may provide support to people at that apartment who need additional support. But then they're available for in the rest of the building if someone's in another apartment and they may need to just check in or they have some questions. That support is available throughout the building.
Okay. So over the last, I thought decade, but it's 16 years if we started in 2010. How many of these projects have we done, and how many people are we supporting?
So right now we have about, I think it's around 114 apartments across the city with about 170 people living in those apartments. But we're also, this is a process that's ongoing. We've already got another couple of developments in the work, one in the West End, Valhalla Village, and then one at the East End, at Victoria Park. So those are in development right now, and so that'll bring additional units into the stream as well as.
Okay. So one final question before I go to Jonathan. So people that are moving into inclusive vertical communities, into apartments on their own, and apartments with a few roommates and more staff support, you mentioned that we're using group homes for many years. What's happening to those homes when we no longer use them for those purposes?
Right. So as people move out of the homes, and this is all about choice, like what works for people, what level of independence they want. So some people want to move into the apartments. They like the location, the neighborhood they're in, and the building and the setup works well for a lot of people, and that's what they're choosing for. There's also some people that the vertical communities don't work for. Maybe they have great accessibility needs, there may be some behavioral issues, or just some reasons why that doesn't work. So we're looking at the homes that we have as far as repurposing. Who do they work better for? So it's part of our ongoing process of evaluating as we move forward.
Okay, excellent. Jonathan, to you, you've just done a bunch of work on a policy position that Community Living Toronto has just released this, well, I guess it was last week, and we're starting to talk about this because we do see this as an opportunity to scale this across the country, that other organizations can take our ideas and use them. Based on your sort of involvement with the sector over the years and understanding of wait lists and people that are in need of housing and supportive housing, What is it about inclusive vertical communities and this model that appealed to you? And with your policy hat on, what opportunities do you see for this kind of approach?
Well, and I think that, and just to sort of expand, as David said, this isn't something that's for everyone, but I think it's something where we have an opportunity to really have truly inclusive neighborhoods and help to get people into those neighborhoods. And it's something where, and having seen it in actual practice, it's something where you actually you can see the difference this has on people's lives from a mental health perspective, from just feeling as if they own something. It's theirs. It's something that, and I've seen people be excited and it's something as simple as being excited about buying furniture and getting their own furniture for themselves, and it's their own place. So I think it's this thing that goes beyond just having a roof over your head. It's something that connects people to a place, and it connects them to some place where it's something they can call their own, which in a lot of cases, and for a lot of people, they've never had that experience in their lives before. And so it's moving, actually, to see this and to see the impact that this has had. And so I think it's something that, is this going to be something that we can do on the scale that we do it in everywhere across the country? No, but right. I do think it's something where we can take this model and this sort of relationship that we've been able to build with the City of Toronto, and that certainly is something where that can be replicated across the country, and where you can get that sort of really great relationship, and you can have these, maybe not in a 50-story or 30-story building, but in a smaller building, absolutely, where you can get the same kind of model and in different parts of the country.
Right. There are pictures from I think the CN Tower was finished in 1976.
Yeah.
My grandmother bought me at the time, and I still have this. It's a long brochure that's sort of long and narrow, sort of with the picture of the CN Tower on it. And it was in an insert in the Toronto Star, sort of showing off the building and how they built it and all that kind of thing. And what struck me was in the background of that picture. So this is, what is that, 45 years ago, 50 years ago?
Yeah.
50 years ago, geez. There's there's very few apartment buildings. It's factories. There's no Sky Dome or Rogers Center. It's a very flat place. And the CN Tower was built to transmit television signals, right? So, and there was nothing in the way. You fast forward to a picture now, and outside the window behind me, all you can see is apartment buildings. So this move towards inclusive vertical communities and moving out of homes, which was very representative of what Toronto was like 50 years ago, into apartments, is sort of a broader move to reflect the changing demographic and realities of our city. David, with that, what have some of the challenges been with inclusive vertical communities and getting involved with developers who are doing these big ambitious projects, and that what are some of the things that have been challenges that we've problem solved and resolved, worked out along the way? Anything come to mind?
Yeah, maybe a few. And it's a learning curve for Community Living Toronto for our staff, but it's also a learning curve for the developers. It was new when we started in 2010. Like, we had internal learnings, like how would this work and what would the model be in these buildings, and we worked through that and learned with Dan Leckie Way. Toronto Community Housing, a little bit more experience supporting agencies within their buildings. I think that was an advantage there. But then we took that and the city moved through this program in the 2010s with Open Doors, where they were trying to encourage development of land that the city owned. So one of the calls was for developers to come in, but they also had to partner with agencies. So we took that opportunity to reach out to developers and do that partnership and really work with them in the application bid with the city as a nonprofit partner agency. And we did that a number of times, and sometimes we're successful and sometimes we weren't. But the times that we're successful, we worked with the developer and really built that relationship. And I think that really speaks to some of our learning and how we've improved over the years. We've really worked closely with one company, Mahogany Management, with Tim Need as the principal there. Mm-hmm. And that was really, we worked with them on the Madison View. And again, great learning experience, and we built that up, again, our internal capacity, and then Tim's understanding of what we want as Community Living Toronto, but we helped bring other agencies involved as well into the development. And now we've done Birchmount Green with the same developer. We're now partnered with him in Victoria Village. So really building our knowledge and sharing that with developers and other agencies, I think we've really helped share our learnings there.
Yeah. And most of the projects that we've done have been focused on affordable housing. And there's funding available from the City of Toronto and from the federal government to create affordable housing. One of the initiatives that we've come up with, and we've got a couple things I want to talk about. One is our Lawson project that we're doing in Scarborough. The other is, Jonathan, you've been working on a green paper, and I want you to explain to people what a green paper is. But the green paper is called The Power of Place. And our thinking is that beyond just affordable housing, to reflect the changing realities of cities across the country, that we need some rule changes to be able to scale this up and broaden it to make more housing, affordable housing, available in projects that are going ahead and working with private developers. Do you want to talk in a nutshell? First of all, start with what a green paper is, and then what the policy position that we're putting forward is.
Yeah, so a green paper, it's a traditional term that's used in a number of different jurisdictions. So it's used in usually Westminster-style parliamentary democracies, and the European Commission uses it.
Of which we are one.
Of which we are one. One. Yeah, absolutely. And so what it is as opposed to a white paper, which is a white paper is a committed piece of government-backed legislation or policy. A green paper is a proposed piece of policy. So it's something that is a suggested or possible way of moving forward through policy. So that's what a green paper is in a nutshell of what that is. And I just really like the term. And it comes from the fact that they used to be printed on green pieces of paper. So that's sort of where it comes from. So I like the term. So it's a
good bit of history
proposal.
There.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's a policy proposal, and really what it comes from is the fact that, as we've discussed, we've had a great deal of success with this inclusive vertical community model. One of the key issues, though, that we have is that we often get sort of brought in at sort of further down the line with some of this piece. So it's something things have already been decided, things have already moved forward, and
as developments are starting, right?
As developments are starting. Right. And we get brought in when there's sort of a piece around, we have some units available and that sort of thing based on, as you mentioned, Brad, some rules around there needs to be certain percentages of affordable housing and that in these developments. And so we get approached through that. So looking at it as a possibility of us being more involved from the beginning, right now, there is no existing ability through CMHC-backed mortgages for a single organization to purchase multiple units in a condominium building specifically. And whereas they do have a similar program where you can buy multiple units with one mortgage in other types of buildings, just not a condominium building. But even when that's allowed, it needs to be a single floor or it needs to be a full building. And so obviously for what we're trying to promote in terms of our inclusive vertical communities, it's not very inclusive if there's a single floor of people who are just people with developmental disabilities. And so it sort of goes against what we're trying to do with the model. So the paper is basically proposing, now again, as you mentioned, Brad, this is something where we've gone very quickly in this province, in this country, where 40 years ago, everything being built was a detached house and it were in neighborhoods. And then in about 20 years ago, we very quickly moved to everything that was being built was condominiums. And even with the fact that now, and everyone's talking about in Vancouver and Toronto, there's a downturn in the condominium market, which is true, it still represents a massive amount of housing that exists because there was so much of it was being built and so much of it is there. And so this is something where historically, it's just something that has been never touched on because it was never needed 40, 50 years ago. And so the policy didn't keep up with what was happening and how rapidly our housing changed. And so really it's an opportunity for us to really look at how different ways that not-for-profits in particular would be able to get involved in housing at a much reduced cost to be involved there. So that's really what the focus of the paper is, and really what the paper is proposing. And the paper is meant to be kind of a conversation starter with governments, with other housing providers around how can we look at this and be a bit more innovative with the sort of world that we have around us right now. And also, how can we try and get more not-for-profits involved in housing at a lower cost?
Right, right. Excellent. So this became really relevant for us, and this policy change, when we started looking at the project we're doing in Scarborough at our Lawson site. So, David, and we've talked about this in the past, but maybe you could give us a bit of an update on what our Lawson project is and what the status of it, where the status sits.
Sure. Yeah, Lawson is a site that Community Living Toronto has had a presence on for decades as a building we owned with TDSB. And then we took ownership of the building in 2009. We realized it wasn't a property or a location that really met our vision or our needs. It was old, institutional. So we started looking at some opportunities to redevelop that property. And we had needs at Community Living Toronto for better office space, better program space. But we also saw an opportunity there to meet a big need of the association and people we support, but also the general community, and that's for housing. So took a couple of attempts, but in 2001 we did an RFP and to redevelop the property, and Tridel, one of the leading.
Sorry, it wasn't 2000. It wasn't 2001.
Yeah. Oh, 2021.
2021.
Okay. Okay.
2021.
I know time goes fast, but that's.
Yeah, 2021, we did an RFP, and Tridel, one of the most successful, well-regarded developers in the province, was a successful bidder. So we worked with them for a number of years, just figuring out what we could do within the property and really come up with a plan to redevelop it. The plan that we've moved forward with is to take the property and we divide it up into 5 lots. And there'll be 5 towers on the property, 4 condo buildings, market condo buildings that will be sold and by Tridel, but also 1 building that will be owned by Community Living Toronto that will be an affordable rental building with 286 units, plus a large podium that will have office, respite and program space, but also other amenities for the building and for the broader community, a coffee shop, and also some community space. All the buildings oriented around a public park. So we're very excited about this project and moving forward with Tridel.
And this is in Scarborough. It's sort of McCowan and Ellesmere, and it's 4.7 acres or so. Why is it taking so long? 2021 to 2000 to 26? Why does it take so long?
Well, as we're learning, there's a lot involved with planning a community. We're not just building, it's not just a single building, we're building a community. So we had to take the property, figure out how it would be subdivided, and then go through all these application processes with the city, which takes a considerable amount of time. But we've moved forward at a steady progress. Now we're at the point now where the rezoning has been approved, the plan of subdivision as well. So we're now moving into the design phase of our own building, which is very exciting because it's a lot of technical work in the background. But over the summer, we're starting stakeholder engagement sessions to really look at detailed design work for the building. And part of our approach is to really look at co-creation, bringing in our various stakeholders, families, individuals, staff, the board members, to really influence and help us shape this building that will hopefully work for everybody. It's a long process, so we're doing this over the summer, but then moving into the fall, we start our site plan application, which is another process you go through with the city to really look at how the building integrates into the rest of the environment. And then we go into building permit phase, and then we start construction. So we're targeting right now construction to start late 2020, 2028, 2029. And from what I understand, the construction window is about 39 months. So 2031, we should have our building ready to occupy.
Okay. It has been a long time, and that when you explain it, there's a lot to it. But there's certainly some opportunities to editorialize a bit. There's opportunities for this whole process to be sped up. It's a lot of work and a significant investment of both time and money. Our rental building will be 29 stories tall, so it could be 290-ish units, depending on how we design things. How do those units break down? Like what makes up the people that will be living there?
So it's a mixture. It's a mixture of affordable and market rental in the building. So about 50-50 split. The affordable side depends on which program you're going for, but so affordability has different levels. But from our perspective, it'll be open to the public to rent units within the building. There'll be opportunities for other agencies to rent units in the building, and we will provide opportunities for people we support in Community Living Toronto to rent units within the building as well. So it's a very mixed and inclusive building.
Okay. Of the affordable units and of the people with disabilities and lived experience that will be living there, what's the ratios in that? What's our thinking now?
So our goal is about 20% of the units for people supported by Community Living Toronto or partner agencies, and that's the target we're setting.
Okay. And 20%, we sort of landed on that. We don't know if that's the perfect balance between to be an inclusive building. We're trying to balance inclusion, where there's lots of different types of people and lots of different people living in the apartment with mixed tenure and mixed life experiences, along with impact. We're just aware that there are thousands and thousands of people waiting for supportive housing, and we wanted to make sure that we get that balance right. So we don't know that 20% is the magic number, but it's a number that we're comfortable with here. The units, the Tridel is also building 4 condominium units over the next number of years. Those will roll out in phases. Do you want to talk about our inclusive vertical communities and how that will work? Jonathan, maybe I'll throw that to you and how that ties into your policy paper.
Absolutely. And just to start off there, I think that right now, as I mentioned, the condominium market, you get the looks of when you say we'll be building 4 condominium towers, you get the looks of why. But I was just at a housing summit yesterday, and there were even people there saying that in about 5-6 years' time, we're going to have more need for more housing and more different types of housing. And so there will be, again, a need for this by 2031 when building, when we're going to have the first pieces of our project done. So I think it's there that that's why that's needed in all different types of housing. And we also, so I believe in the 4 towers that are being built there'll be approximately 2,000, so just under 2,000 units spread across those 4 buildings. And of those, we would have up to the opportunity to purchase up to 20% of those units in those 4 towers. And obviously, that will be about 400 units. And so that was something we would want to have partnerships with people, different groups that we'd want to have involved in there, at which we've had great success with in the past. But it's also something where the paper comes in around, it would be something where it would be much cheaper for us to get involved in that if we had the change of having the opportunity for a single mortgage on multiple units spread across the thing. I think it's something that's still feasible and possible to do, but it would be much easier if we had that change.
Yeah. Now you've done in developing your policy paper, we just didn't come up with this completely on our own. There are other jurisdictions that have similar types of approaches. Can you talk about a couple?
Absolutely. So in doing the policy paper, I did a bit of a jurisdictional scan and looked at different organizations, different countries, and what is feasible in those countries. So primarily, I looked at the European Union, I looked at the United Kingdom, I looked at Australia, and I looked at the United States. And now I should say, because there's obviously different rules in these places, in these jurisdictions, There's different ways of doing things. But what I was able to find was there are some approaches that are in these places that offer very similar circumstances. So in the UK, there are housing associations that routinely hold multiple units that are scattered throughout privately developed mixed-use buildings, and they treat them as sort of a single portfolio, which is very similar to what we're proposing. So looking at it as a single portfolio as scattered around one building, as opposed to, this is one unit, this is one unit. And there are organizations that lead that have partnered with private developers in the way that we're doing with Tridel. The Newland Housing Trust is one, Dimensions UK is one. There are a few options there that have done very similar things, which also leads to lowering costs and making sure that helping to sort of provide inclusive housing at scale without clustering people with developmental disabilities in one area. In the European Union, the European Association of Service Providers for Persons with Disabilities. So they've looked at cases across Europe in Finland, in Spain, Slovakia, Greece, and one other country that I'm forgetting right now, where they do something very similar, where they acquire multiple units across buildings and they finance them through arrangements with organizations that support people with disabilities.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Sorry,
go
I
ahead.
could keep going on.
No.
So this isn't something that is entirely unique. Again, I have to caution that it's not apples to apples comparison because of the different jurisdictions, but it is something that has been done in a similar way in other jurisdictions, and I think it's something. And for example, in the US, Freddie Mac offers something very similar in terms of the backed mortgage that we're asking for from CMHC. So I do think that there are.
So it's a well-worn trail. It's a well-worn trail of that, because there's so many examples across the province of how not to do affordable or supportive housing. So we feel pretty excited that we found a model that works, that is inclusive, and that we think can be scaled. So we're going to be advocating quite aggressively with this over the next until we see some progress. So just as we wrap up, where do people go for more information? First, David, on Lawson, where do people find out more? And we've got a mailing list as well that people can sign up for.
That's right. If people go to our website, cltoronto.ca, there's a link on there to a page for Lawson. They'll get some latest information on the development. And there's a link in there to subscribe to get a mailing list as well. So that's the best way to keep updated on the project.
Great. And Jonathan, on the policy paper?
Yeah, and actually, if you go to the same websites, and on the left-hand side where there's the Lawson drop down on the left-hand side, if you click on that, you'll see where it'll say the power of place, and there is where you'll find the full policy paper, the full green paper, as well as an executive summary. So if you don't want to read all 24 pages of the policy proposal,
I can't imagine anybody not wanting to read the entire 24 pages. But
no, why would you not want to? Unless you're a policy wonk like me, but which I love doing that. But there's also an executive summary there, which gives sort of an abridged version or Coles Notes version of the paper, as well as the news release there. So just a bit more information and a bit more detail. So
good. And we've covered a lot of ground really quickly today. If people are wanting more information, more detailed information around how the model works for us at Community Living Toronto, what the impacts have been, and the repurposed housing, or the mechanics of how this power of place policy paper would work, and we see that being implemented, please reach out. We're happy to chat more and give more information. We love talking about this model because we've seen the impact that it's had. Thank you both. Appreciate your passion and dedication for this and the time that you've given today.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful. It's always great to talk about this.
So. Yes.
Agreed. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you for listening, watching, and sharing. We release a new episode of Community Chats on the 15th and the 30th of each month, so don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date.